Today is July 19th edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were Central Illinois agriculture source and in the Midwest alongside in Central Illinois. We're glad you're here on Back Roads of Illinois. Declining commodity prices and the Farm Bill problem with Russia, wheat, clean fuels credit. Declining commodity prices and the Farm Bill, the markets are down spout to the farmers about their profitability and sustainability. The corn market is starting off to wrong direction for right now, alongside with the failure of the passing of the Farm Bill for this year. Some farmers are concerned about their net income and gross income. Inflation. Russia wheat. The wheat has a lot of issues in Russia for right now with freeze issue on May. But now that it has some diseases for right now, alongside with the harvest season in Russia for right now, clean fuels credit. This administration has introduced to the clean fuels credit for the Treasury Department. Some farmers agree with it or don't agree with it. Past May, they had to introduce the 45Z models with a substantial full aviation on May. We were talking about the crop conditions and herbicides issues with Jared White from Brownfield Ag Network in Central Illinois. Otherwise, stay tuned on with Jared White from Brownfield Ag Network in Central Illinois near Springfield. Welcome to the show. How are you, Jared?
Hello there, Cesar. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me back on the program. Great to be back with you. Hopefully you've been doing well as well.
Let's start with our conversation about the crop conditions in Central Illinois.
Very good. I would say most Central Illinois farmers that I've talked to, actually here in the last couple of weeks, since we've been getting rain in July, I really haven't talked to anybody that said it hasn't been good. Really is looking like the hurricane remnants that we got hit the right parts of the state. The southeast and central part of the state were pretty dry through the month of June, but we got the leftovers from Hurricane Beryl, and it dumped 3 to 5 inches of rain in places. Some didn't get nearly as many. Of course, Southern Illinois had some rough times with flooding, but you asked about Central Illinois, and then after that we got the derecho that came through, and it actually didn't do a lot of damage in Central Illinois that I've been aware of anyway. And I've talked to several folks that got some beneficial rains out of that. So crops are looking really good. There's a lot of high expectations, at least in the central part of the state.
How is the beans for right now near Springfield?
Soybeans are always hard to predict. Farmers always tell me it's hard to predict the soybean crop and what it's going to yield. But I would say that most folks would probably be happy. A lot of farmers in this area went with early soybeans, early as they could get in. At least this year is kind of rough, getting windows to get going planning wise. But relatively speaking, I think a lot of folks went soybeans first, and we've seen a lot of tall soybeans. Seen some shorter soybeans. Some of the later planted soybeans are a little bit short, but I think that's probably due to the dry June that we had. But I mean, again, we've had cooler temperatures now. We've got a lot of flowering going on, and soybean fields look good. Looks like stands are pretty good. So I think again, expectations for both crops are pretty high here in Central Illinois.
Yes, we saw it too in north central Illinois.
Mhm. Yeah, how hopefully the damage wasn't too bad up your way. I know there were some areas of the state with the derecho that came through here in this week of July that we're talking it that definitely saw some damage in the northern parts of the state. And then there was, again, a lot of flooding in the southern part of the state. So not everywhere is rosy, but the central part of the state's pretty good.
Does farmers have any concerns about the commodity markets from your reporting?
Farmers always have concerns about the commodity market, Caesar. Uh, but yeah, the commodity prices are not where folks would like to see them. We've seen big drops since last year, and a lot of outlooks. I've talked to some of the professionals at the U of I, Gary Schnicke included, and talking about some of their crop budgets and prices are reflecting that it's going to be hard to break even for a lot of folks. I've talked to Matt Bennett here just in the last week with agmarket.net. He's a farmer in Shelby County, very knowledgeable with the market situation. And he said a lot of folks may grow the best crop they've ever grown in central Illinois anyway, and not make any money at it. So that's kind of the situation that we're in when it comes with the commodity markets. And with the good weather that we've seen in a lot of the Eastern Corn Belt, Beryl did a lot of damage down south, but most of the Eastern Corn Belt got a lot of good rain out of that, and that markets have been kind of on the downhill slide since then. And unless we see, as Matt told me, unless we see, surprise big demand uptick or some widespread weather concerns, which we've had pockets of weather concerns, but he didn't think it's been widespread enough to have a real dent in the crop. It could look like another big carry out, and of course that means that prices probably aren't going anywhere higher anytime soon. But you never know. All it takes is one a big event, one what's the black swan is what they call it, one of those type events, and everything could change. But as of right now, commodity price outlooks aren't too favorable as we go into harvest. So to me, that says growers are probably, trying to, especially this year, make every bushel count, every acre count.
Did you hear about the tariff from the campaign trail?
The I'm not sure what you're asking about there, but yeah, it's been an interesting campaign trail, of course, with everything that's happened. So that's that, something there, could be one of those black swan events that makes the markets do wild things. Who knows? But it's kind of a wild time that we're living in right now.
Trying again, did you hear about the
I know that there's been talks of
yes.
tariffs. Okay. Sorry, Caesar. I know that there's been talks of tariffs. I know that the Illinois commodity groups recently came together here in the last, I guess, about a month ago now, that they came together to um, send a letter to the Illinois congressional delegation talking about trade and how important it is. And any tariffs increases would be bad for Illinois agriculture. And say that to both sides of the aisle, both parties, because we've heard and seen actions from both parties when it comes to tariffs that have had negative impacts on ag. So it was very impressive to me that all of the Illinois ag commodity groups came together to send that letter. And then as a follow-up, I had a chance to talk to Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski from Illinois here, and she was said the message definitely resonated, and the congressional delegation knows that trade's important, and I think again it kind of goes back to, like you said, the election, that there's a lot hanging out there that may not get settled until after this election is settled. So it's I know that for the Illinois ag commodity groups, that any kind of tariff increases or talk of increases, they're not really for it, at least from the conversations that I've had as of late.
Jared, do you see a lot of weeds on the field for right now?
Actually, I've been out to a couple field days and back and forth Springfield a few times here in the last few weeks, and haven't seen a lot of weedy fields out there. I know farmers still talk about having troubles with resistant weeds and things like that, but I think that uh, the we saw that the weather cooperate just enough at the end of planting seasons where guys were able to get in, and from the farmers that I've talked to, they were able to get in, do that post-emergent spraying, and but of course, there's always those patches that you have troubles with and things like that that you may see from the roadside. But overall, I think the crops really look good. And I have heard some concerns about some of the diseases. I know I'm not sure if you wanted to talk a little bit about that, but there's obviously some concern about crop disease with the heat and the moisture and that we've seen here in the month of July. A lot of talk of tar spot and southern rust potentially coming into the crop. So a lot of talk of crop protection passes, and even this morning had a conversation about corn aphids, which had never really talked about too much. And evidently, corn aphids are thick in some areas of Illinois this year. So all kinds of things happening out in the field. But overall, again, I'd say the crops look really good.
How about water hemp and southern rust?
Yeah, water hemp, that's the bane of most farmers in my area of central Illinois. They always looking for ways to take out water hemp. And I talked with an agronomist with BASF here just recently and talked about now is the time to identify if you're having water hemp escapes. Potentially you've got resistance there. There are ways to get that tested. You can send it off to the plant laboratory at U of I and things like that. So that's something to be keeping an eye on if you're having, like I mentioned, trouble spots in the field or something along those lines. Keep that in mind. And then, yeah, Southern Rust with Hurricane Beryl coming from the south like it did. Going back to my conversation with Matt Bennett, I just had that here recently, and he was very concerned with Southern Rust coming in with that storm because that's something that's blown in from the south. And can we see it late in the year typically? But we saw a really early storm from the southwest this year, so he was worried about that. Tar spot, like I said, tar spot's now been confirmed in Illinois. I talked to Lance Tarchioni with Bayer. He's an agronomist in West Central Illinois here in the last week, and they've found tar spot. He knows it's tar spot, and so again, going back to those crop protection passes, pretty much. All the agronomists are kind of concerned that with commodity prices where they are, that and the crop looking as good as it does, that could combine into a well, I may not need that fungicide pass this year. I'm probably going to save some money and not do it. And then we see that disease really kick off if we keep getting these prime conditions like we've had through the month of July. If we continue to see that through August, that it really takes an impact on the crop, such as what we saw in 2021 with that disease coming in late and really knocking the crop back. And maybe not to that extent, but definitely to that possibility is what I've had now several agronomists tell me. So definitely some concern about disease in the corn crop and soybeans as well. But again, those fungicide passes, those yellow airplanes flying around out there doing it for a reason and protecting this crop and hopefully protecting those bushels.
Yes, I heard about it with some crop advisors in West Central Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would expect we're seeing that across the state. I mean, when the crop gets to around pollination times, when you start to really see those fungicide applications go on. And I actually did have an agronomist say a lot of the growers are turning to ground rigs because the crop's a little short this year because it was a dry June, so it didn't grow as tall. So you're seeing a little more use of ground rigs for fungicide application.
Is there anything would you like to go to be telling our audience about the issue on herbicides and pesticides regulation from the state capitol?
Well, it was kind of we saw some legislation introduced, going back to some conversations that I've had with KJ Johnson, president of the Illinois Fertilizer and Chemical Association. There were some bills that were introduced that they were concerned about in the spring legislative session here in Illinois, but none of those came to fruition, at least along the herbicide pesticide issues. So, but there's always next year, as they say. So keep we've seen several instances in the last couple of years of potential legislation being introduced that could put some hefty bans on, and just take some tools out of the toolbox for growers. But again, KJ said that survive this year. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the fall veto session. Don't see a lot of new stuff get introduced in the fall veto session typically. So again, probably next spring have to be on high alert again for any potential issues like that in the General Assembly.
How about the Canva?
Yeah, dicamba, that's one that's still kind of a question mark. I know there's growers that are very concerned about what the potential future or lack thereof for dicamba is. At my last reading, last I knew that there still had not been an official label issued by the EPA for dicamba for 2025. So that has a lot of growers exploring options, looking at different systems like Enlist, and some of those things. So it. It's been an interesting road. I know Bear. I had a chance to do a on the ground a ground assignment with Bear, who has the Extendamax dicamba products and things like that. Was up in Chicago for their innovation update, and they're still focused on getting that label passed and ready to go for 2025. So, of course, we're talking in the middle of July, and growers like to plan ahead. So I don't know. I don't know what those questions are out there still, or what those farmers are, if they're going to hold out and wait. I mean, I don't see a lot of farmers waiting. I see them making decisions and making plans and maybe leaving that behind, but I could be wrong there. So, Cesar, you gave me a good question to start asking farmers as we talk here over the next couple of months as we move through the season, because that's definitely a good question.
Where people can find you.
BrownfieldAgNews.com. All of my stories get posted there. Interviews get posted on BrownfieldAgNews.com. And of course, we've got affiliates across the state of Illinois and across the country. So find your local Brownfield Ag affiliate, and hopefully I'll be on the airwaves there.
Do you have any final thoughts on these reportings?
No, I just appreciate you taking the time to invite me on, Cesar, and it's always good to catch up with you. And hopefully, we'll get a chance to do this again. And as I said, the crops are looking good here in Central Illinois, so hopefully that continues, and farmers out there can have a good 2024.
Thanks, Jared.
Thank you, Cesar.
This is Jared White from the Brownfield Ag Network on back roads of Illinois. This time is for your agricultural commodity markets update on back roads of Illinois. Corn futures finished an unchanged 7 to 8 cents. Soybean futures finished an up 4 to 5 cents. Wheat futures finished an up 3 to 4 cents. Now that we were going to talk about the livestock market for today on this afternoon, cattle futures finished and down 4 to 6 cents. Feeder cattle finished and down 8 to 10 cents. Lean hogs finished and down 2 to 4 cents. Texas crude oil finished and up 10 to 9 cents per barrel. Dow Jones finished and up 8 points. And welcome back to the show. Do you remember that we've been talking about federal crop insurance on the Farm Bill? I've been watching some Farm Bill coverage. We're in the cliches to the Farm Bill because some Republicans and Democrats as well, that they don't have some concerns about the federal crop insurance on the Farm Bill for right now. However, we're asking ourselves about the PLC, or ARC, is going to be a top priority for farmers in the Midwest and across the country. You should have to be consulted by your lawmakers about the crop insurance coverage. You've been Thanks to Jared White from Brownfield Ag Network. We're running out of time on back roads of Illinois. You can listen to our show wherever you get your podcast. This has been Back Roads of Illinois. I am Cesar Delgado. Have a great weekend.